Good morning, whoever you are, wherever you are. It is day 3 of a dry fast. Maybe I shouldn't talk too much, but I don't really feel very dry. So I thought I would make a video, whether it's long or brief, to encapsulate some of my observations, but also my frame of mind and state of body as well. So I actually feel I feel great. I had a great sleep last night. I don't know if you can see it very well, but I moved the bed to the window so that cool, maybe somewhat moist or damp air breeze from the nearby. I can't move it. Yeah, that's better. From the nearby park will come to my head and nose at night, and I'm using mouth tape at night to. It doesn't entirely inhibit mouth breathing, but I think it discourages it at least. So yes, you don't wake up with a headache even though you're not eating or drinking. So this is an experimental dry fast. In the scheme of things, I'm only the third day, not 3 full days yet. This isn't very much. This is a sport in which there are levels. So there are some people, such as Trevor from Fasting with Trevor, who has reached 21 days, and maybe others in Russia who have gone much further. But in addition, in the dry fasting community, 5 days, 7, 11, it's actually very common, and it's totally achievable just by the right preparation. So in my case, I've been having a lot of minerals in the form of some supplements like beef liver, but also sea moss as well, barley grass juice from the powder, which I mix with blackstrap molasses, add a little Himalayan salt for the sodium. I don't know if we have to say the good sodium versus the bad, but yeah, if you're not eating processed foods, but you're adding the sodium for the purpose of having the electrolyte, well, when you go to the gym, you use the sauna, so that when you rehydrate, now getting into the rehydration, Harmless Harvest coconut water is very good. But watermelon water is also okay. And both of those, you can spike them with lemon juice and some Himalayan salt. So you get the benefits of citrus and also the good salt from the sodium. And there's another electrolyte that, what are they? Potassium, watermelon water, coconut water, rich in potassium, sodium, calcium, and maybe another one. But sardines, which I have on deck in the drawer, are actually very rich in calcium as well. You could use those to really ramp up your concentration in that mineral. Unlike politicians, we're not necessarily thinking about the rare earths for special kinds of magnets, but just thinking about the human body and its own mineral reserve, which should be stored in the bones, the nails, the hair, and so on. For the purpose of this dry fasting sport, which I guess is like it's like mountain climbing. You're going into thin air, and you ladder up or level up. And again, I'm just a beginner in this process. I have done water fasting for 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, these magical numbers, multiples of 7. But I never actually crossed the psychological frontier into dry fasting. You have to overcome the notion that in 3 days without food and water, you're going to die. But, fasting with water, that's okay. If you are in any danger, it just means that you're really unhealthy going into it. You should start with 24 hours which is what I did about a week or two ago. I usually start the fast the night before, so say it's 8 p.m., then I'm going to stop having any food, in this case fluid, and then I go to bed, and that's not really a very big deal, and I get through the next day. So in the first dry fast for me, when I was still more beginner, the 24 hours, I did have some worries as the 24 hours approached. And of course, it was bedtime. I was trying to go for 36, so 12 more hours. But I was experiencing, overheating. I was forgetting things. I was worried. I was forgetting people's names that had been, have things to do with, and so on. So I was somewhat involved. Of course, my mouth was super thirsty. But you have to doubt also that the thirst that you feel in your mouth, whether or not that's real. Thirst, just like hunger, is largely a report. So is it a true report or a false report? I don't want to say the word parasites over and over because I think I'm not an expert in that. And that's been said, it's been beaten to death, whether it's worms, microbes, bacteria, whatever. But it may be the case, just a hypothesis, that parasites can trigger your thirst signal because they need a moist environment to survive. As Trevor once said, these parasites are really hijacking your internal fluids, like your waters, your lymph, even your mucus, and so on. So one of the benefits of the dry fast is that you reclaim your body, or are you your mind or your body? I don't know, question for the audience. You reclaim these internal fluids. They get hard and they're broken down much later in the fast. Again, this is just a newbie. I'm not even going to call it a 3-day dry fast yet, but it is, in terms of ordinal numbers, it is the third day. Because, in a few hours, I'm beyond hour 48. Hour 48 was last night around 10 p.m. After I went to bed. I wasn't even bothering to consider breaking it because the sleep, again, you have to see this right here. So the sleep with the, is this in the camera? I have a terrible iPhone SE, which is not the social media kind of device you want. But sleeping with your head, it's still early here, so you can almost, maybe it's placebo effect, but the cool air feels like it's so hydrating. And if you make a commitment to nose breathing, then you're getting the oxygen to your brain. So unlike when I'm doing water fasting, but when I was doing water fasting, I was actually sleeping over here. And of course the window is closed and it would have the blackout curtain going, which brings me to something else. But I would always wake up with a headache while doing the water fasting, but I figure, that's a hardship, it's part of the process or whatever. Well, maybe you're not doing it right if you're experiencing unnecessary hardship. So, of course, you might ask, well, if the curtain, you don't have a blackout curtain here, what do? You invest in more, mess up the walls of the apartment with amateur curtaining, or just get one of these. I'm not getting paid for this, but this is a Manta Pro sleep mask. You put it in your eyes, and it effectively blocks out everything. Obviously, there's going to be some leaks because it's not perfect, but you just put this on. You can pretty much sleep anywhere in your apartment. So I can move the bed right near the window where it's open and there's no blackout curtain. It doesn't really matter. So I'd imagine this would be helpful if you're traveling, if you're staying in a hotel where, of course, say the curtains are imperfect. Well, Manta's got your back. So I do say this was a very good investment as well. And why would I get this? But in the other room as well, I wanted to leave the door open. But there's if you can see right here, get back to the echo. But if I leave this door open, then there's actually Say hello to Schopenhauer. There's a skylight, of course, right here. So you're going to be getting light at 5 a.m. In the summer. So what do? Do you just close the door, then wake up with a headache, and so on? And why the headache? I don't think it's because of coffee, because the caffeine headache comes much later in the day, at least for me when I'm addicted to caffeine. But again, dry fast. I'm not having water. I'm not having coffee. This is day 3. I'm alive. I'm well. In many ways, I even feel better. And I also observe that the weight loss, I look like I do on, day 7 of a water fast right now. So if you wanted to do a cut after a bulk, you don't even have to do a long diet. You just do a dry fast. Provided that, of course, that you're attuned to it. You can't just jump in to no experience. And even in my case, again, I'm recounting 2 dry fasts, 2 very newbie dry fast, the 24-hour one. I was just getting worried and thirsty and but there's a fear that you're going to die, because medical experts are going to tell you that, well, they say it's 3 days is the limit, but what if you're weak? What if for you the limit's only 1 day without water? You're not going to have that water. Your human body, 90% water. You're going to be drinking water, constantly hydrating. Well, but actually, if you want to do a dry fast, my opinion, my limited experience again is that you need to prepare with quality hydration. The spring water really isn't going to cut it. It's just water. Sure, maybe it's from a good spring, which brings up the question of terroir as well, not just with water, not just with wine, but also with water. So, the ancient peoples would revere certain springs for their healing properties, probably because they had different potent mineral concentrations. Water isn't water. There's a certain micronutrient composition or even portfolio to it, per how many parts per each part of this water, per liter, milliliter, whatever. You're going to be getting certain electrolytes, for example. Gerolsteiner, for example, in Germany, in Deutschland, you have a lot of magnesium. I think it's maybe 60 milligrams of magnesium per liter, half a liter, or whatever, which is pretty unique water profile as far as waters go. And I think the Gerolstein is actually naturally carbonated or sparkling or whatever very precise adjective you want to use. Now, the quality of the water. So since we're just talking about products on this video, maybe I have something. So yeah, this is essential. Yes, it's $10, but what you're paying for wine, at least $10 a bottle, probably more. Now, why would you have wine to prepare for a dry fast? That's just a deviation that you can afford. And you have your lemon ready. Ignore the other things in there. It's part of the preparation, but it's not anything extensive. It's just a lifestyle. If you were doing, I was planning 36 hours, so the day before, you should really hydrate just with fluids. Some people advise doing something for your colon as well. I didn't do that kind of preparation because it's just preparing a short dry fast. But to get into the poopy, brown, gross matters, what happened in a dry fast? You're not drinking any water, so surely you're not going to be able to move any stool. In my experience, however, on day 1, I was having perfectly normal bowel movements without any water, without any coffee, without any, no nothing. But even on day 2, they had numerous, I think 6, maybe 7, but some of them, the later end, were smaller. So the first one was okay. Maybe today is the day when the full cycle, the full trip through the digestive system slows down. But that wasn't the case because bowel movements 2, 3, and 4 were actually fairly sizable. So they were removing some refuse from the system. I would imagine there's still more, because if you were to do something more drastic like an enema, you would require a lot of those until they maybe, I've heard 4 or 5, until the water actually comes out of your body clean, But I think that my guess is that that's more of a preparation for a longer dry fast, maybe 7 days or 11. But of course, you have the question of how long do you want to go? Even if you feel great, this is day 3, I'm talking, maybe I'll need to relax a little bit after this because it's kind of a waste of water to do this. What was I going to say? But you have to consider not just how you feel, but how much time, how many days do you want to allocate? Is it really 1.5? So 1.5 times 3, that's almost 5 days. Do you really want to allocate 5 days to a strict recovery? Limit your physical activity. Maybe don't go to the gym. For such a short dry fast, if I stop at 3 days, or I do 72 plus 12 for 84 hours, I doubt that I'd be that vulnerable to a muscle tear. I would think that comes into play for a longer. There was a leak on the ceilings. We're just marking. This was a long time ago. Marking the places where the hydrometer was beeping. So these are just decisions to make. If you get to this point, if you're asking these questions, then my opinion, as a 21-day water faster, but a very newbie, I can make this 3 symbol for, mysterious number 3, Trinity, third eye, and all of that. And that's the main thing. So speaking of minerals, this is just a very long form, non-targeted video, but I was talking about the Himalayan salt, which you can add to the lemon. Where do I have? Yeah. So obviously I have a lot of these. So you're gonna be buying different things, and you're probably spending a lot of money on groceries, especially in this zip code. And citrus, even though oranges this year have been largely a disaster, I think it's still worth getting the citrus. And if it's boring, you can even add honey. But whoa, you're adding sugar. Sugar is bad. Well, I think if you've fasted to the point that you've overcome pre-diabetic or even diabetic symptoms, then you're fine. If you're not spiking your insulin or causing a carb crash by throwing honey on your fruit, then you're fine. And a lot of the fruit we get is rubbish. I honestly think that most of the apples, maybe it's just this year or whatever, they're just kind of dull. They're just kind of trash. So even though it's contrary to fruitarian principles, in which I dabbled at one point, it's just adding honey, cinnamon, salt. It just makes it more enjoyable, and you're able to wolf it down with relish, which I think is essential for digestion too. So dates, a lot of dates. I don't know what the information is, but they're supposed to be good. Honey is supposed to have something called flavonoids or polyphenols, or I don't even know the words that I'm saying. But obviously, a mixed array of supplements here. So we're getting to a point, and if you watch Trevor's videos, you'll see this. I'm just echoing poorly what he's saying. You'll see that even though fasting, whether it's water or dry, is basically based on the principle of non-intervention and letting the body cure itself. Contrary to modern medicine, which assumes that the body is weak and frail and needs the mind, especially the mind of the scientist, to save itself from perdition. We're anyway, with this we have, seed, pre and probiotics. That's kind of experiment. I've been using them, but it seems to improve the process of it would repopulate the gut with, I guess, some assistance. It says symbiotic. I don't know if it's real or not, but you populate the gut with some beneficial something that helps you with full digestion, which means not just eating, digesting, absorption, but the bowel movement, what happens in the toilet as well. Which you may experience a slowdown if you fast and you don't intentionally repopulate your gut biome with good bacteria, which again is difficult if you're believing in fruitarian or even raw vegan protocols. Well, why is that? Because you're able to digest fruit, no problem. But when it comes to anything beyond fruit, then you experience slowdown symptoms and so on. You think, oh, because I'm sinning, because I'm departing from the prescribed diet. Well, no, you're just not going about this properly. And I would say that, yeah, foods, and maybe even, I don't know, maybe things like raw kefir, raw milk, I don't really know much about that, or just slower introduction of eggs, meat, and so on would also, yogurt, would bring in the symbiotic bacteria that we need. But I don't know, it could be that a lot of the foods that we get, at least from the local supermarket, are just very poor in the vital additions that life in any true or higher sense requires. So, for example, the fruits. Trevor will often say one orange today only has 1/8 of the nutrient profile that it would have had 100 years ago when the soil was, I guess, richer on average. But then someone says it's been depleted, maybe due to pesticides or over farming or whatever, which I should really stop because now I'm starting to feel dry. Brings me to, shouldn't be touching this either, but just the container. Blackstrap molasses. It's supposed to be, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is supposed to be jam-packed with nutrients, whether in micro, macro, I think micronutrients. Yes, it's a sugar, oh my God, but it's kind of bitter, and it's very nice to have in your coffee, or I also put it in the shake because I have the barley grass juice to get my minerals from the land after I have the sea moss. Again, I was making the general observation that what we're doing to prepare and recover from these dry fasts under Trevor's guidance is it's somewhat medicinal. You intervene to get your body the things you need, because say you're living in a city, you're not directly in the ocean. But you want the benefits of the consumption of ocean food. This is, again, you can tell me what this has or doesn't have, whether it's a myth or not. But supplementation with magnesium at night and in the morning, I don't know, seems beneficial. And liver as well. You can get it in pill form. But I also cooked some chicken liver a few days before the fast, which I ate in copious amounts. And it's actually much better than you think. I did a technique where I cooked it in butter. Using an Instant Pot, of course. You can't see it anymore. But I would cook the first batch in butter, and then because there was some burning, I deglazed with a cheap red wine. And as the second batch was much better because the pot was hotter and it had the butter red wine mixture. So it's really good. And I think if you cook the liver correctly, then you're fine. But yeah, anyway, going back to what I was saying, blackstrap molasses, yeah, it's a sugar, but added sugar is bad. But again, if you're experienced with fasting, then you should have corrected by now any diabetic or pre-diabetic conditions. So you're not going to cause carb crashes by the added sugar, whether you put in your coffee, your barley grass juice, or even just have it raw. Because again, it's medicinal, and a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. But if the medicine is a spoonful of sugar, then the spoonful of sugar just goes down, right? And yeah, and I have this around. I don't use this very much, but this is something that I'm gonna introduce more after I break the fast and I go back to another preparation, perhaps for something longer. While I'm working, I was doing shorter water fast, like 36 hours, not for any weight loss, not really for any mental clarity. It's really because I noticed that on the day I break the short 36-hour water fast and I go to the gym, I really enjoy it. I'm energized, I'm joyous, I'm hitting PRs, PRs in air quotes, because these are just beginner gains that I'm regaining. Obviously, I'm not very bulky right now, but I was happy to bench, one plate on each side, 135 or 61 kilos. That was pretty good for my frame, and considering the fact that I've only returned to the gym for about a month and a half. So, well, but what else is there to say on the dry fast? The sleeping with the window. Maybe the air is moist, like you're getting air, so that's good. No headache when you wake up. And yeah, I'm just gonna stop now. So this is it. Maybe we hold out for the 72 hours to make the 3-day dry fast. And this is a lot easier than I thought. The main hurdles, again, just like in the 24-hour dry fast, it's just getting past that. It's like you're doing a curl and you're at a sticking point. I think for me it was just psychologically just 24 hours. Okay, you start putting together all kinds of arguments, but all those arguments, they're just reports from your weaker self, whether it's parasites or whatever, demons. But the arguments are not worth taking at face value. Voila.